Well, good morning. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. We're about midway between Washington and Baltimore in northern Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm Bruce. Welcome to all of you. And as we say, welcome to the neighborhood. We'll go in and see what's going on, but you won't have to wait for anybody to slip on their sweater or a pair of soft slippers today, okay? We'll just go in and find out what we've got going with the glass blowing. So this is our entry here. And as you can see, it's a converted dairy barn. And Foster went to all the trouble years ago of building this place. So part of his training in the UK as a glass blower included building a studio. And you can see from the size of this place, he's quite a builder. So, good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, Matthew, Diana, Joanna. Welcome aboard, all of you. Glad you could join us. So we've transited the gallery area, and here we are in the studio. Good morning, Foster.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Nice to have you with us on this beautiful spring day, the 1st of June. Welcome.
Okay, great. So originally we had planned to show you gifts for Father's Day. But just as in the wild, adaptability to your environment is required here too. So we're going to postpone Father's Day gifts for another week. And so today we're going to have a special piece made by Todd, and it's going to be a beautiful murrini vase, and we'll have lots of interesting things. Ask questions, share, and please comment. And I'd like to mention right now that for commenting in last week's video, this beautiful starfish is going to Joy Campbell McGeegan. So Joy, congratulations, and the starfish will be on its way to you just as soon as we can contact you and get a mailing address. And this really beautiful kind of lime green confetti vase is the giveaway. Confetti mug is the giveaway for next week. So your comments get you entered in a random drawing, and you too can have a piece from the Art of Fire. So we'll come back to that and let you know about that later. But as you can see, we have plenty of other stuff going on too. We even got some pieces emblematic of Dad driving the golf ball through the glass, or maybe using a hammer to try to fix things. Most dads have experienced that to their chagrin. But at any rate, we're going to have a demonstration today of a murrini vase. Will we be able to see the lampshade that was made this weekend?
Oh yes, absolutely. Actually, it's up front.
It's up by the grinder?
Yeah.
Well, let's go take a look while Todd's getting set up.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of you joined us on the YouTube presentation that we had over the weekend. We've been really pleased that a group of woodworkers asked us to join them for it's kind of a worldwide craft festival that's done virtually. And Josh made this beautiful ocean wave vase for this wooden lamp. So you saw something similar to this with a vase a couple weeks ago. Now, up on the top, there's that little clear nub. That's where the punty was attached. This is also where a hole will be ground so that it will fit over the harp of the lamp and screwed in place. So you can see the beautiful deep blue of the ocean rising to the aquamarine color, the waves curling, and the foam too. So there's the lampshade that we made on Saturday. Some of you might have joined us for that. So we're really proud of that, and we'd like to thank the woodworkers again. Some of them have actually been showing up on Tuesday mornings to watch us do our regular glass blowing. And they're from all over the world. So we've had folks viewing us from Guam, from Scotland, Ireland. We've got a lot of UK even here on this broadcast. So it's a worldwide presentation. We're the worldwide Art of Fire. So the guys are getting set up for this piece, and it's going to take a while to make. A lot of times anything that is complex is going to take a long time, but it'll be well worth it. But I've got some of the murrini over here. I'm going to reach in this cup and show some of these pieces to you. So I'll focus toward the light so you can see through the murrini now. And I'll turn that a little bit Try to find the focal length of the camera. So you can see that there's a design of color inside of it, and it's going to refocus now a little bit. Sorry about that. But we've got several pieces of this murrini, it's called, okay? And they will be laid out, very many of them, many more than I have here in my hand, into a pattern. And that pattern will be laid with the color facing up. And we're going to put some on this wooden shelf right here just so you can see. So the murrini will get laid out kind of like that, only there'll be more of them. And then what we'll do is put them into the heat and fuse them by squeezing them together. You can probably, yeah, you'll see them a little bit more clearly now if we put it on this white paper. And there we go. So Todd will have a ceramic plate with quite a few of those on it, and they're already preheating in our annealer. And they're on a ceramic plate, and then Todd will pick the ceramic plate up. He'll put it onto that pastorelli, it's called, that long-handled thing with an open end, and begin the heating. Okay, so any words, introduction, whatever? I mean, I've talked about the murrini. You want to go on about the piece a little bit?
Hi, my name's Todd.
Okay. Good enough.
Sure, we're going to do this little murrini piece. It's a little bit involved, but I think it's an interesting thing to see. Sometimes to see a bigger piece that's got a little more composition to it. This piece actually began with taking some, Bruce showed you the murrini, but taking blue colored glass over a clear glass bubble, and then slicing and cleaving and pushing it back together with a tool called the taglio, which is on the bench that we got right here. Probably for getting out of frame. We're going to use this a little bit today, but you crease and fold, and then you get these little patterns of color inside. Those pieces were then chopped, and you'll see the plate when it comes out. I've probably got 70 pieces of glass.
Wow.
70 little pieces of murrini that we're going to heat and squeeze together. So assembling, making that cane, cutting it, and assembling it on that plate, there's already about 2 hours at least of work in this piece to begin with. So this last 2-hour-ish block is the culmination of putting this piece together. So if I screw this up, it's a lot of work that's gone for naught. So
That ain't gonna happen.
clap your hands if you believe in fairies. What I'm going to do first, I've measured this. We have what's called a pi divider, and that just takes that formula that converts radius and diameter into a linear measurement. The linear portion comes from where I will attach to the sheet of glass. That will then be converted to a diameter that I will create on the end of this pipe. Once I get that pipe set, I'm going to park it. I'm going to pick up my cane, my murrini, squeeze them together, and then we're going to put the whole shebang together.
Okay. So Todd's going to gather up some clear glass and make the collar he was talking about, and I'm going to show you our pie divider here. Okay? This is not a typical one that's a knife with a triangular shaped spatula. This is for measuring glass. Okay? So by using the legs out here to set the width of the piece, it automatically calibrates the diameter of the glass needed to make that. And that saves us a lot of time and all that multiplication by 3.14 ad infinity. And if you missed us on March 14th, you missed Pi Day. Okay, so Todd now has the clear glass on the end of the pipe, and what he'll do is set that to where it goes right through the calipers. If he needs a little smaller diameter, he presses harder on the marver. And he'll check the diameter again. And so he'll get that just like he wants. And then this will be kept warm while the piece, the plate of the murrini gets reheated. Okay?
Just making a mess to show you that I've got the...
What's that?
another version of that formula
Oh,
we lose the pie divider.
the pie divider, okay. All right, so now he's putting that over into the pipe warmer, and it'll rest there until he's ready to use it. Then the next step is going to be to get some insulated gloves, reach into the annealer, and bring out the plate of murrini and put them on the pastorelli.
Hey, we have one of those.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. The good luck whistle. All right. So Foster is over there if he needs any help. Todd's got this. He'll get both doors open, immediately come over. There's his plate with all the murrini. So those are many, many more of the same type of things we showed you. Yeah, it is a little like a pizza paddle. Only we don't have a wood-fired furnace for our crust. Okay.
Well, you know what?
He's going to need the gloves still because he's going to be moving this pipe around and he's going to be squeezing the murrini a little bit. So those murrini came out of our annealer at approximately 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what the annealer runs at. And so what he'll do now is that preheats them so they don't crack when he enters the furnace, the glory hole, at about 2300 degrees. And he'll go gently into that and start warming them. These murrini will have to get to a temperature of somewhere probably around 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. At about 1300 they'll start fusing. And he may not have to go all the way to 18. He could probably get away with a little less temperature than that, but the idea is he doesn't want all those little half-inch squares to come apart when he goes to roll them up. So they will be fused together and they will be a continuous sheet then. And when he rolls the collar across that he made, that will pick up the glass and he will form a tube on the end of the blowing iron. So this is going to take a few minutes because he's going to bring this back and he'll be rotating the plate. So by putting on the gloves, he can turn the plate 180 degrees. The reason for this is we have the burner on one side of the glory hole and we want an even heat throughout this glass. Also, the middle does not get as hot, so he's going to torch it. Torch! Torch!
Now that we torched the frost off of that, you can see the pattern a little clearly.
Yep, that took some of the frost off. There you go. Okay. So as I mentioned, the burner is on one side of the glory hole. So it strikes one side of the plate first and is blocked from striking the other side. Also, the edges pick up the heat and not the middle so much. So that's why he turns the plate to expose the other side and then uses our propane torch to heat the center of this collection of glass so that it all gets to the same temperature. Once he's satisfied that he's got the thing fused together, he'll be ready to pick it up. He doesn't really want it to melt, so if he gets to a higher temperature like 17 or 1800 degrees, it'll only be for a few moments. He'll probably do his pickup at around 14 to 1500 degrees, I'm guessing. But we don't really have a thermometer to put on it, so it's more feel by how the glass moves and appearance. He can take that tagliole, that blade he showed you earlier, or a pair of tweezers. Now you see where the orange glow is around the perimeter. And this will tell us whether it's fused. Now he's squeezing it together now, forcing it between the two tools. And if it's fused, he can lift the edge and it's pretty much sticking together as he turns it around. There you go. So now he's getting his fusing. So he didn't have to go really hot with that. He didn't have to go to 1800. Okay? So he had the murrini preheated, got them all fused together. He's letting Foster know what it is he wants done with it. Torch in the middle. What? Yep. Up. Up.
never a good thing. We said pi for the pi dividers, right?
Yeah.
But isn't the Greek name for the symbol of pi actually rho?
I don't know.
I was just thinking if you put those two together, it's pi rho.
Pyro. Pyro. Oh, yes, that fits really well with what we do. It's very close to phyllo, though, too. So I'm thinking more dessert. Okay, so Todd's going to get this heated to just the point he wants and fused together. Now, even though it gets fused together for the pickup, there will still be small gaps between the individual pieces of murrini, which he'll have to then heat and melt further together. So each of those little squares needs to contact completely with the adjacent squares. Another squeeze, it'll keep the symmetry. And since it's a sheet right now, he can just turn it instead of the entire platter and get enough heat into that. Okay, so now he's already communicated to Foster the help that he wants as far as warming up the collar. So Foster's going to bring that over and start warming it in his glory hole. Todd, in the meantime, will give the murrini one final heat. He'll bring it back to the bench, and then Foster will give him the collar, and he'll do the roll-up. Art of Fire squares. I like that. Kind of like the old tic-tac-toe game. Okay, so he doesn't want extreme heat on that collar, or the collar would change shape, and the diameter would decrease as he pushed on the glass. So Foster's just keeping a nice even heat in it. Todd's directing the operation from over here, and the rest of us are just watching and enjoying ourselves. Okay, so now he'll take the collar and he'll place it onto the murrini just a little bit, and he'll begin to rock it back and forth, and you can see the sheet is bending a little bit because it's so very thick. It's not going to flex all the way around yet. Foster will move the pastorelli with that ceramic plate out of the way, and now Todd has the sheet of murrini picked up on the collar. It's still kind of fanned out. And now he's going to brush off a little bit of kiln dust. That shelf that he had is coated with a substance that keeps the glass from kind of sticking to it, but the kiln wash, it's called, is on there. Okay, so he's going to get the brush off any kiln wash that he has so that it doesn't show up in the final piece, and then he'll begin to take this sheet, which you can see is attached to the blowing iron, but it's still almost flat on the outboard end. He's going to make a cylinder out of this eventually. When he's happy that he's got all the kiln wash off that he's going to take, then he'll start the process. So he's got that done. Now you can see how he's using the edge of the marvering table to shape the glass a little bit. That glass is pretty thick. Those little squares are about a ½ inch thick. So they don't want to move really easily. They're not super hot, okay? They're not so hot that they would flow. This is all by intention. But since their heat is reduced a little bit, they're a little harder to push around. Yeah, pixie dust, David, that's it. Okay, so this is starting to get to where he wants. He'll be bringing this around, and the heat sometimes makes the glass move a little extra. So he can just take this, and now what he'll use is his tweezers on the end, and you can see how the cylinder is going to develop. This is going to take several heats to do this. The first thing he'll probably do, is touch up the end of it so that it doesn't flop around all over the place. Then what he'll do is work his way down the piece toward the blowing iron, and eventually he'll have that seam all joined up. When the seam is all joined up, Then he'll work on sealing all the individual joints between the murrini. He's using the marver again. See how he lays the glass on edge? And that brings it around closer to the cylinder shape. And it's a very delicate touch, and it's without a great deal of heat at this point. If he got a great deal of heat right here and had the whole thing glowing orange, it would probably warp out of control. It would be impossible to shape. But by keeping a softer heat in it, he can bring the edges closer into each other. And notice that he has to accommodate the fact that gravity is pulling the glass toward the floor at all times.
Curse you, gravity!
So he turns the pipe over when he wants and lets it fall back to center. When we talk about centering in glass blowing, we're talking basically about an even distribution of the material around the central axis of the piece, which is way more complicated to think about. But if you keep it in line with the pipe and equal around the pipe, you got it. Okay, so here he comes back with more shaping on the marver. Notice how he's kind of looking underneath to see how those edges are shaping up. That's where his focus is right now, is getting those edges joined up, and his seam is just about there. When he gets that, it will be one solid seam right down there, and then he'll begin to work the rest of the piece. Isaac Newton for the win. Yes, indeed. Fighting gravity all the time. We have no apples in here, but we watch glass fall all the time. You can see he's got a little more heat in it this time. It's a brighter orange glow. That's because things are shaping up like he wants, and he can make things happen a little bit faster. Notice how he's turning. Now he's got the whole thing going. When he presses down like that, he's simply making sure that the end is even, okay? You never really wind up pressing the glass in just one direction. It's kind of like, oh, well, since David mentioned Isaac Newton, every action has an equal but opposite reaction. So,
Third law.
Third law. Is that like third rock from the sun? Okay. So, anyway, when Todd was doing all that work on the seam, the end pieces, the tip of that cylinder, if you will, didn't maintain a complete straightness, and he didn't expect it to. So once he gets his cylinder and his seam, then he'll work on the end of it a little bit. That open end, and it doesn't have to be perfectly flat because he's going to be using some glass in a minute and close that off. This will eventually become an enclosed bubble. So right now the job is to get all of this fused together. Unless acted on by an outside force. Yes, thank you, Bridget.
That's the first law. That's inertia.
Ah, see. Okay. You can see how much more heat is in the glass right now from that bright orange glow. He's got his cylinder formed, and he's using the back of the jacks just to straighten that end out a little bit. We'd be putting a plug of clear on the end. Okay, so he's got all this beautiful murrini. If he used his jacks to close off the end of it, he'd lose one whole row of murrini. So what he'll do is, with Foster's assistance probably, is put a little bit of glass right on the end of that to close up the end of this tube. And then he can cut his jack line and pull from that glass and save the majority of that last little row of murrini. And now you're probably going to start seeing a lot more of an orange glow in the glass. It's all together, it's formed its shape, it's got some stability. So now the heat is not as much of an issue in trying to distort the glass. He's going to roll. This will straighten the sides, and this is also sealing the joints. So I'm just going to ask Todd to give us one quick close-up, if we can, as he goes back of a line of the seams, and we'll see what he's working on. There we go. Okay, so you see those lines running top to bottom on the piece? When he first gathered up those were not joined. On that outside diameter, they were still spaced apart a little bit, okay? He had to close those spaces, and he may continue to do that a little bit, but he's got that entirely sealed on the outside now. So now what he's having Foster do is pick up some clear glass. Foster will get a couple of gathers.
Give it a little point. Just want a little point into it, and then we'll just stick it right up. That's good.
And Todd's going to lay it on just like we would a lip wrap. He's going to touch the glass, and then he's going to bring it around so it's right on the edge of his murrini cylinder. Now, he's got that ring of glass down on the bottom, and that's what he's going to use to close up the tube. Well, Virginia, thank you for checking in with us in the middle of a dentist appointment. This piece is going to take approximately, yeah, that's really something. This is going to take about the full 2-hour session, so we hope your dental appointment doesn't take that long. But join us later. We're making a murrini vase today. So Todd has the murrini squares all fused together. We picked them up off of Pastorelli, and now what he'll do is shape that clear ring on the end and gradually bring it down together, either using the Marver or his jacks, and this will seal off the piece. By using his jacks right at the edge where the clear went on, he's hardly lost any murrini at all. When that little piece clips off, you'll be barely able to see any. So this saves all his murrini for the piece. He'll use his diamond shears to tap that off, and when it hits the floor, we'll be able to see. And there is all the murrini he lost. So he's got all the rest of that to make his vessel from.
My vessel.
Alrighty, if you've got any questions, ask away. Comments, please comment, because your comments are what gets you entered in the drawing for next week's prize. And Joy McGeegan won the starfish from last week, and we've got a beautiful green confetti mug for next week's prize. Somewhere in the process of working this piece, I'll take a trot over there and we'll take a look at it. Those of you that may have joined us expecting to see Father's Day gifts, as they say in a wild environment, adaptation is the key to survival. We have adapted here at the Art of Fire today to our necessary circumstances, and next week we'll do Father's Day gifts. In the meantime, this is a real treat to watch this beautiful murrini vase created. Now that the piece is entirely closed up, there's no longer an open tube, Todd can get a lot of heat in it and begin to shape this as he wants. He'll make sure everything's sealed up and in line as he wishes. With a pipe held at an angle like that, he put just a little pressure on the glass right where it joins the pipe, okay? And that seals that up well. It also pushes a little bit of the glass off. Now, when he turns with the iron angled this way, just as you may have seen Foster do if you watched us on YouTube, he's marvering the tip of the glass, and that will cool it there.
Just the tip.
Just
the tip.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
We heard that. Okay, so now you can see a little bit of inflation. All right. But it didn't expand at the bottom. So if you're interested in next week's drawing, it's a beautiful lime green confetti vase. If you'd like to see one made, but in lapis blue instead of green, you can check our YouTube channel. All right, so Todd now has the sealed glass. All the murrini is fused together, making a nice solid line. And essentially, he's now got a bubble in the glass. So instead of blowing a bubble into a solid gather of glass, he created the bubble by closing up a sheet of glass. And he'll get this hot, he'll do some more marvering or blocking and a little bit more inflation. The blocks are cherry wood cups on a handle. The wood is always wet. We keep it in water buckets and the wood is shaped green. It forms a little bit of steam for the glass to move on. You can see just a little bit coming up there. And by changing the angle of the block as he progresses, Todd changes the angle on the glass. We can blow into that now very gently and smoothly.
But I'm good. I'm past that, so I'm good to go.
So he's going to take this. You'll notice that when he blocks the glass, it comes back to a little bit more of a spherical shape. It would be a lot more difficult to gather subsequent layers of clear glass on this if he'd left it as a long cylinder. The heat that he picked up from the gather would make the piece elongate excessively and be hard to control. So by keeping it a little more under control, a little closer to the pipe, if you will, he's going to ease the process of the next gather. Right now, he's cooling the end of the piece and now the back of the piece down close to the pipe. You can see kind of a ridge right in the middle. He'll roll that ridge out a little bit and he may add some more air. So depending on the thickness of the glass, he can decide how much air he wants to accommodate in this before the next gather. Yeah, Rude, that was a pretty big block, but we'll get the really big one out to show you here in a few minutes. We got the Mambo. Or the Mongo. Okay. Okay, so there's our pattern. You can see that beautifully in there with the seams between all the murrini. And he's letting this cool off now. We really watch the ratio of the length to the diameter of the glass. If the glass gets too long and skinny and we try to go gather over it, we got a bit of a mess on our hands. So by keeping this nicely under control, Todd has it to where he can pick up the next gather of glass and control the motion as everything gets hotter. That glass is cooled off considerably, and even so, it will heat up very rapidly when he gathers the 2,000 degree fresh glass over it. He's going to let that cool a little bit more, and while he does that, we'll see if we can show Rude the monster block. Grab the monster block, Foster. And this isn't as big as they come. That's as big as we've got in the studio. So that's a pretty big block. This one in front is much bigger than the one Todd's already used. Okay, so, and he's still over here cooling it off. That diameter is going to gather a good bit of glass for him. So he reaches in and he lets it sink into the glass, and then he'll begin turning after he's in. Once he's in, he'll pivot to level to gather it up. And now it strips off in the furnace. That saves the glass for future use. And if he chooses, he can let it drizzle right off into the bucket. The glass is so fluid that it flows right off the pipe. It's so hot that that tail burns right off as he comes back up to horizontal. He keeps the glass under control with a nice slow manipulation of the pipe, and he's peeling the excess off the end. So that hot glass goes in the bucket. We'll recycle that at a later date.
Yes.
Now, he didn't gather everything that he could, okay? Even if he wants more glass than that, we're better off to take a couple of gathers and control things rather than try to get one monster gather that we can't keep control of. So I don't really know. I'll ask him if he's going to take another gather. There will be another gather, okay? So believe it or not, Todd kept this intentionally small. That's kind of relatively speaking, okay? But he kept it a lot smaller than it could have been, and he stripped glass off so that he can get this shaped, under control, and just the right length so that the next gather doesn't run away from him. So this will be longer than the last one, but it'll also be wider. So this is already much bigger than it was. So by doing this in a couple stages, he keeps control of the glass, nice measured motions, really subtle.
So I'm going to fire polish this. This outer layer of clear glass rolling against the margarin table got some chill marks, and sometimes that shows up as a little like haze between the layers of clear. That's really microscopic bubbles. So I'm going to fire polish. We're going to use a little bit of the surface tension of the glass to really smooth that surface out, let this cool. I'm going to air margar this in. I'm going to put another gather on that.
Okay. So there's another term that you haven't heard us use a lot of, and a couple of you had mentioned that sort of thing before, the fire polishing. And that's exactly what it is. You're kind of polishing with fire and removing any impurities or marks that are in the outer surface of the glass. So now we're just going to sit here and watch this. And while we're watching it, I'm going to mention something that I confused one of you with a few weeks ago. I talked about the fluorescent lights reflected in the glass. And I said if we look down there and we see straight lines in the from the fluorescent, we know that we have a straight vessel. And somebody thought that that was perhaps how the glass blowers check the glass for straightness, and it's not. We look at the vessel, we make sure the sides are straight. It's just, that's a cool byproduct of sitting below the fluorescent lights, is to see those straight lines. If that lower half of the vessel were wobbly and not straight, that line of light would be all curved around. So anyway, we don't use that to decide if it's straight or not. So we've got the fire polishing. The other term was the air marvering. Air marvering is just like it sounds, letting the glass shape in mid-air. And then what we're doing is we're not just idly standing by whistling a happy tune. Sometimes we're seated. No. What we do with the air marvering is we use the rotation of the iron, the loss of heat, and gravity if need be, to keep the glass centered and let it cool off uniformly. So what Todd's doing right now could be accomplished much faster on the marver, the cooling, but again, as he said, it would cause marks in the glass, chill spots, wherever it touched the metal. So that's what he's avoided, and now with this even larger gather of glass, he'll gather once more. He'll go into the glass, commence turning, pivot level to get the glass onto the pipe, and then he may strip some off in the furnace by pointing it down again. Then he'll bring it back to level to exit, and if he's got too much, he'll let it drain off. And there it goes again, and you can see it's a nice uniform gather, everything under control. Pivot to level and keep turning, and the string of glass just burns itself right off. It gets so much thinner, and it's still so hot that it just burns apart. Marvering with the iron down low like that pushes the glass off the pipe. Notice he's cooling the glass that's within about the first 7 inches of the pipe. By inverting the angle, he cools the other end and shapes it. He can go back and forth between those two, and he'll be going back for more reheats too. We use newspaper as a shaping tool. If you use about 7 or 8 sheets of newsprint, fold it up to about a 7-inch square and keep it soaked in water or keep it wet, it's a perfect insulator. Notice that the glass is inflating in the middle and the upper regions, but not the bottom of the piece, which is that outboard end, because Todd has cooled it with the newspaper and previously the marver. Once he's had the opportunity to do that work on it, he can go on back to the glory hole and reintroduce heat. So for a piece this large, he has a little bit longer working time at the bench than we do, say, with a mug or a goblet or a champagne flute, because this large mass of glass retains its heat for a very long time. Well, longer than a goblet would anyway. So instead of having to jump up from the bench every minute to go reheat, he's got probably at least double that amount of time with this mass of glass. Glass blower's got many tools to choose from. When he points it up like that, the glass actually gets shorter. Notice how only the very end of the glass is touching the marver. That's what's getting cooled right now. So you may ask, what about chill marks on that? Those will come out during subsequent heats. If Todd had left the chill marks on the intermediate layer, that's what would have shown up as a haze. He's blowing now, and look, that tip is not inflating at all. The whole piece is getting a larger diameter. Now I think this is going to be it for Gathers, Rude. It's going to be a pretty good sized piece. So now he's got it inflated. And as we've said countless times, probably enough that you're tired of hearing it, 80% of our pieces are made by a sphere with a jack line. So once he gets the sphere pretty much enlarged, which I'm going to guess is right about now, he'll come back and begin initiating a jack line.
He asked Rude how close he is to getting his glass furnace going.
That's Rude. Oh, Rude, Foster, well, you probably heard it. Foster's curious how close you are to getting some type of furnace going. So it really is nice to interact with you all, especially those of you that have some glass blowing experience or even just interest. We love talking about it and telling you what we're doing, and would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So it's not the jacks quite yet. Todd's going to chill the bottom a little bit more. Yeah, it's a big chunk of glass. And here he comes with the jack line. Notice he's not turning the iron really, really fast. He's got control of the glass, managing the heat, chilling the bottom a little bit, and he'll probably drive a little more heat in that neckline just to cut it down some. So, was the furnace question to Ted? No, Ted, the furnace question was to Rude. Stocking board? I think that's how you say it. Yeah. Yeah, so, oh, Rude says almost ready. Well, Rude, when you get it, send us a picture. We'd love to see it. Or send us a short clip of you working at it. That would be so cool. Okay, so if there's not quite enough, oh, he said he'll send us pics. That's wonderful. Okay, so he'll get enough heat in this to where he can actually cut the jack line. Now the glass is going to move a lot more. So what you'll see him do is tip the pipe downward. And as we've explained before, this limits the fall of the glass. Jennifer Foster is asking about a timeline for people doing make your own. I'll tell you what, we'll let Theta answer that in the comments section because she's watching this the whole time. But it won't be long now. Won't be long at all. Okay, so yeah, a little interruption on the business about the jack line. If the iron is held horizontal and the glass starts to fall and it's hot, it can actually get to a point that it's 90 degrees to the pipe, which is really difficult to overcome. But if you hold the pipe pointed downward at about 45 degrees, now when it falls, the most it's going to fall is 45 degrees off the pipe, because 90 degrees would be falling past vertical. I hope that makes sense. See, even if that glass falls right now, it's not falling so much away from the pipe. It's almost staying in line with the pipe as he cuts the jack line. Now he can recenter it, use the paper to cool, and then he'll be able to blow it out some. By cooling the tip, let's watch the end of that. See that conical shape at the bottom? It's not expanding. It's expanding up above that, where the glass is not cold. So come on, somebody say it. What kind of glass moves?
Hot glass.
Hot glass moves, cold glass don't. And even though that's a stupid saying, that's a perfect example of it right there. By having the tip cold and the upper reaches hot, the hot glass moved, the cold glass didn't, and he's got a beautiful blowout on it. So now he can keep doing the same sort of thing. Just keep adding to the process. Again, he might have been able to do that in one heat, but it would have been extremely difficult to control, okay? But by taking his time and multiple approaches to it, he's able to just keep complete control of the glass there. So now he's driving more heat in it. He'll be working it just a little bit more. The constriction of the jack line does present one more issue for the glass blower, and that is a narrow pivot point, which can be hard to control. But with 22 years experience in it, Todd's got that locked up. Okay, chilled the bottom, that's the cold. Did not chill the top, that's the hot. And there goes the hot glass moving, and the cold glass don't. Is this going to be a cylindrical vase or tapered? Okay, flattened. Okay. So regardless of the shape, whether it's a cylinder or tapered like an oval, okay, what we have to do is overblow the glass just a little bit to accommodate the diameter when we elongate it. So we make these spheres with a jack line, but we get them a little larger diameter than what the finished product's going to be, so that when we swing it out or allow gravity to elongate it, the glass has got to go somewhere, so when we point it down and it gets longer, it gets narrower. Notice he's doing a nice gentle rocking back and forth with that. It's not excessive. By taking a nice gentle motion, he's got control of it and gets exactly what he wants. He can do that as many times as he likes. Misty says hot glass move sounds like a rock band. Okay. You can see it moving a lot, but by holding it down, it'll elongate even if we don't swing it. Gravity will simply pull the hot glass toward the floor. Now he'll chill again and blow it out. And again, the central portion up toward the top is now inflating. The bottom still is not blowing out where that little conical tip is. And that's going to give him a beautiful place in just a little while where he wants to flatten it. But for right now, they're getting ready to use cork paddles. Now these cork paddles can be used to flatten the glass. So if we don't want a round shape, we don't want a cylinder or a tapered cylinder, we can make it flattened to where it's kind of oval. And by using the cork paddles,
just a little bit, and then we'll do a little, just real light squeeze. All right. I don't want to make it real thin. I just want to make a just change the face a little bit.
so there you can tell, you can hear Todd telling Foster how it is he wants it. He doesn't want it squeezed hard. He's not going to make this a completely flattened vase. It's going to have a little bit of a curvature to it. Now he's able to move it a little more. You'll notice that last heat, he wasn't in quite as long. So if he doesn't put quite as much heat into it, he can be a little more aggressive on the motions. Now when they go to flatten it with the cork paddles, it'll have heat, but not a tremendous amount. It's going to have just enough to squeeze together. And when they do that, Todd will likely cap the pipe with his hand so that the air doesn't squeeze out. He starts gently now, and if he likes, he can get a little more aggressive and go around the world. Okay, so now we see Todd's turning at 180 degrees each time, getting an oval shape. And Foster's using the paddles. And if they're doing that again, well, hello, Kate from Martinsburg, Pennsylvania. Okay, so if we do that again, keep an eye. I'll show you Todd's hands too. He's got the pipe capped up there. That's to keep the air from squeezing out. He turns it 180 degrees each time. Foster goes along it, and now we get that nice oval shape. And of course, you can't experience it on the internet, but there is nothing like the smell of burning cork. All right, so he can elongate it a little, and also that will change the shape just a little bit. And if he wants it once more, he'll ask. Okay, so he's done with that. And now it's just a little bit of shaping. And we'll come around here so we can get an edge-on view, and you can see the oval nature of the piece now. So the vase is flattened up, and then his next step will be to heat the bottom and flatten the bottom of the piece. Yes, Sharon, it really is. It's beautiful already. Now you'll notice that he's brought the piece back out of the glory hole a good bit. That's so he can focus the heat right on the bottom of the vessel. People tease me about that hot glass moves, cold glass don't nonsense, but when you see this done and the glass blower only puts the hot in one spot, it makes sense. And that's how people learn to control it. Yeah, it does look like a giant lollipop, Ted. You can tell by the orange or deep cherry red glow where the bulk of the heat is. Todd's making sure that the flattening shape has remained. And now he can begin to gently flatten the bottom. And he may take a couple of heats to do that. And it looks like well, I thought he was going to grab the blow hose. Maybe not. Okay, so again, it's a matter of just getting the heat where you want it. Now when you go in that glory hole, everything that's in there gets hot equally. It's exposed to the same amount of heat. So if you only want part of it to get hot, you only try to put that part into the heat, or if a little bit extra is getting hot than you want, you try to cool that off a little bit before you do anything. That's what he did last time with that newspaper. He swiped it along the edge to remove a little bit of heat from where he didn't want it moving, and then he started the flattening of the bottom. So we'll come back and work a little more on that. It's always worth it to take your time and not rush matters and get exactly what you want. We can see where the bulk of the heat is. It's down in the bottom of the piece. Swiping with the paper, and now with the paddle on the end, and the glass is moving a little bit more this time, and it may take another reheat, but we really don't care. We've got the time to do it. When you press on the bottom like that, the sides cave in just a little bit. It has to happen. Back to that old Newton equal and opposite reaction thing. You press on the bottom, it presses the sides up toward the top a little bit. If you want to maintain your profile that you've worked so hard to create, then you just come back and reshape it. Now he has to drive the heat through the whole thing to keep it from cracking, but once more, heating just the bottom area. Now if he wants only the bottom 1.5 inches or so to move, he's going to have to cool off any that got extra heat. Swipe with a newspaper again, keeps the nice line there, but also cools it so that when he flattens the bottom with the paddle, it doesn't press in as much. It only moves the very bottom. Okay, so he's asking for the cork paddle once more. You can see that the bottom of the body moves just a little bit when he presses with the paddle. So what he can do is after he paddles it, he can use the cork to flatten it a little bit. And he'll probably just, okay, he's got fast Foster going on it. Todd's again capping the pipe with his thumb. Just keeping the profile he wants, and we can do this again many times. Yes, Joanna, it does look amazing. Yep, it's really quite something. The shape is not only gorgeous, but the murrini pattern, and you'll be able to see that a lot better tomorrow after we get it out of the annealer and post some photographs.
You know, once you start on the full size.
Again, with the brushing with the newspaper, keeping that nice rounded edge, and then he can flatten the bottom just a little bit. And this will be the place for the punty to attach. So he's going to put an indentation in the bottom just a little bit to receive the punty. He's using a hand torch right now to heat the neck. He doesn't want, let's get him another torch. Here you go. So he didn't want to heat the whole piece excessively again because he's getting ready for the transfer. So by torching the neck, this is like a flash heat for the neck alone. And if he thinks that Foster's going to be another minute or so with the punty.
A little bit more point on that. That's a little bit.
Yes.
Foster brings the punty over. Todd's going to attach that to the bottom and begin to turn the whole thing. Now they're going to heat the neck and let this cool, okay? You want a Sofiette on that? I'll find it. So I was going to go pick one up, but Todd had it right there. He's using the Sofiette or puffer to cool the punty sight. That's a good sized putty right there to hold that large piece of glass. And with all the heat in it, they don't want it wobbling excessively when it's time to take it off. So they're going to make sure that the punty attachment is stable, and Foster will be able to control it. A little bit of water on the neckline. He'll bring the piece up onto the rail, tap it, and off it comes. Foster's onto the yoke with it, and he'll get the lip of the vessel into the glory hole, turning. There we go. Okay, so there's the breath holding moment in the glass blowing process, and we got a beautiful transfer. Okay, now that neck or jack line area was cold enough to fracture. It's going to take a little while to reheat so that we can shape it. So he'll concentrate the heat right there, and you'll see most of the piece is out of the glory hole. But he'll still have to put the whole thing in every once in a while just to warm the rest of it up. We don't want the putty getting cold, because if the putty got extremely cold, it could crack and the piece fall off. So it's a balancing act of heat here. Okay, so since we're only doing the one piece today, let me come over and remind you about our giveaway this week. Todd's going to be just a couple more moments heating up the lip of that vessel so he can start working it. And the winner of our starfish from last week was Joy Campbell McGeegan. And the rest of you that comment will be entered in the drawing for this beautiful lime green confetti mug. So if you'd like the mug, make sure you comment, and if you're the winner, we'll send it along. And next week we will be picking up where we were supposed to be today with Father's Day gift ideas and stuff. But as we say, adaptation is the key to survival around here. So Todd now is working on heating the upper reaches of this vessel. He'll keep working that out until he decides the final shape. I'm sure he's already decided the final shape. I just haven't asked. Todd's using the jacks to open the mouth of the vessel. Foster's using the paddle to flatten it as he does that. Boy, I'll tell you what, I like this. I'm getting so much help from our viewers too. Like usually it's Patrick Foley that reminds me of something, but David Hogan is reminding me to mention the gift certificates. So thank you, David. If I'm a little lax on the job, I know I can count on you guys. So if you'd like to give the gift of glass but aren't sure what to pick out for someone, just get a gift certificate from us. Online, artoffire.com, or on the phone, 301-253-6642. Give us a call. We'll arrange a gift certificate for the person of your choice, and they can pick out their own piece of glass. And if any of the rest of you are interested in ordering glass or see something in our catalog that attracts you, and the catalog is on the website, all you have to do is call if you'd like it in a different color. Because sometimes you might, well, this one's going to be kind of a blue color. Maybe you'd like something like this in red or green. All you got to do is ask. And we can make most anything that's in our product line and even other pieces without any difficulty getting a color you want or custom shapes. So be sure to get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear from you. Well, thank you, David. You'll be number 2A. I'm Avis, always in second place. Okay. Now he's got the parchofis, the wooden jacks, and he's opening that up. Foster's going to paddle the lip for him. The wooden jacks don't steal as much heat from the glass, and also they don't scar the glass as much as the metal blades. Not so much the swinging, Antoinette, but the heating. She was asking if the swinging thickens the lip.
No, heating thickens the lip.
Heat will thicken the glass, okay? The tendency of glass is to seek a spherical shape when heated. So if you're heating it, it draws in on itself, or if you're heating the lip, it will thicken it. But the swinging, not so much. If the swinging does anything as far as diameter, it may thin an area below the lip. The swinging is just for the lengthening. Do you lose the shape by juggling around? That's from Rude. Maybe a little bit. That's why you saw Todd, before the punty transfer, take numerous reheats and manipulations, because he was not keeping the shape that he wanted. Again, the glass was hot, it was moving. There's no choice in that. But by controlling the heat and controlling the motion, then you can get back to the shape you want. So what he's doing now is lengthening that neck a little bit. He's keeping an eye on it, looking at his shape. Now sometimes when we swing it like that, you'll notice he's rotating the pipe a little. Sometimes the lip will need a little work. He's got that perfectly flat though. So he's just giving Foster the hi sign, and Foster's saying hi. Hello, Foster. So hey. Foster's putting on the insulated gloves. Any last minute adjustments, a little bit of length. See how he's holding it straight down. If you're actually able to hold the iron between a thumb and one finger, you can let the gravity pull the piece and it'll hang perfectly straight. The more hands you put on the glass, the more likely you are to hold it at an angle. A little bit of water right in the juncture between the putty and the piece, a tap, and off it comes. Todd's around to open the annealer doors, and Foster will put it away. And there we go. All right. Well, let's hear it for Todd and Foster, folks.
Oh,
hey, yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Todd.
Way, great job. Is he doing another?
He's going to do
the beer.
Do a beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that got done actually a little quicker. So we're not going to leave you all quite yet. Okay. So Todd is going to make a beer mug here in a few moments, but we'll give him a minute to collect himself. I'm sorry, is that what you're making?
Sure, we'll make a beer mug.
No, that's what he said, but he's not making it. So you tell me what you're making. Glass.
I was going to make a transparent cobalt blue beer stein.
Oh, okay.
Optic, nice tall.
All right. There we go.
Oktoberfest style.
And that will be more than ready for Father's Day.
Let's do bubble optic. I'll do cobalt frit. Sorry,
okay.
I'm making a Bruce. We'll do very fine cobalt frit. We'll put it into a diamond optic mold. We'll encase that, and that will have bubbles in our beer anytime we drink.
Could you just give me that hand clap for the encasement again? Oh, wow, yeah. That's beautiful. That's how we put the glass together at the Art of Fire. We smack the living daylights out of it. No. Hey, in for a dime, in for a dollar. Okay, so Todd's going to make the cobalt blue beer stein with the bubble optics. We'll show you. We'll see if we have a bubble optic around. I don't think we do right now. But anyway, it's going to be a beer mug, and we got several right back there. Next week we'll be doing some of those. We got the ones that look like they have a Pilsner and a Stout. And for the Americans that pretend they're Irish and want green beer on St. Patrick's Day, we got one like that right there. For Father's Day, we can drive a golf ball through the glass, or for the handyman in the family, we can hit the glass with a hammer. And it didn't even break. How about that? We've got stemless wine glasses, other mugs, lots of mugs here, several ugly mugs around the studio, but we won't go into that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to see if we can find a bubble optic piece. And partly because we're going to try and let Todd have a little bit of a break here and rest, let's see if we can find anything up here with bubble optics in it. Of course, I'll probably come up empty-handed, but I'll explain the process. Just give you a little tour of the gallery, see the kinds of things we have here. We got all kinds of things here. So, no, actually not bubble optics, but we got some bubble pieces over here I would like to show you, because we made a bunch of these the other day. They're planters. And in this case, we have random bubbles. We don't have the bubble optic. But if you've seen us using the baking soda with the pieces, this is a planter. Here's some that have the leather straps that are hung up. This is how you display them. We'll put your planter up. But these have the bubbles in them, and here's a whole set of them. And I guess we're really out of bubble optic pieces right now. But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. So what Todd will do, you got a bubble optic? Yes, we do. Okay. We always got to come through for you. This is bubble optics right here. Okay? You see all those bubbles in it. Well, those bubbles are created by going into what we call a diamond mold. Some people call them a pineapple mold. And when we go into that mold, we get indentations in the glass. And it looks like a bunch of shark's teeth in there. We do this for Shark Week too. So the diamond mold. Now the tricky thing about this one is you can see how it's undercut with those points. So it's very easy for a glass blower to get stuck in the diamond mold. So after blowing in and forcing the glass into those points, you actually have to suck it on the blowpipe just a little bit and twist the pipe to bring it out. Otherwise, it won't come out because it gets stuck on those little diamond points. And then it's quite a process to, yes, the worm from Dune, exactly, Rude, that's perfect. That's what I think of it as. The worm from Dune.
Oh!
Yeah, the worms, yeah. Got any spice? Okay, we'll just stop right there. Sometimes we can carry these things a little far.
No, not us.
Not us. All right, so Todd will be gathering up some glass, and so this mug is going to be first blown after he collects the color, the cobalt blue color. He's going to blow into the diamond mold. And the reason some people call it a pineapple mold is sometimes when you come out, the piece looks kind of like the outside of a pineapple. Anyway, he'll get a good bit of the blue glass on here. And then after he's got that all collected, he'll blow into the diamond mold and put the little indentations in it. Then the next gather after that will cover all those little indentations and create a bubble. Because anytime you get a low spot or a dent in the glass and then gather more glass over it, you can create a bubble. And since he'll have hundreds of bubbles inside that, he's going to have a really beautiful mug. So he'll go through his blue frit. Maud Dib, yeah, there you go, Ted Scott. Yep. Oh, we got lots of Dune fans.
I'm waiting for the new.
Who wants to go to Arachnis? Okay. And now he's got another color he's laying on the surface. Is that the gold? Okay. So this is going to be kind of like that ornament we showed you just a moment ago. It's going to have two layers of color. And what will happen is after he blows into the mold, the blue will push the gold out of the way a bit. And you'll have a double layer of color, and there'll still be an indentation in it. And then when he gathers over, that will trap the bubbles. So this is going to be a really cool mug here, or stein. Tiny bubbles, yep. He's the Don Ho of the art of fire.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Okay. He's got his bubble established in there now, and he'll change the shape of the glass now so that it will go into the diamond mold. So one thing that's a little bit different about this particular mold is the glass blower wants to make sure that the bubble goes very far down into the gather of glass, right down to the tip. Because if there's a thick spot of glass, oh, again on the gold and blue, rude, yes. So he put blue on initially, quite a few coats of that. Then he put the gold over top of that. Now when he goes into the optic mold and blows out, the blue is going to start pushing up a little bit. But as he blows the piece out later on, the blue is going to push the gold aside a little bit. I'll show that ornament again in a moment, but I don't want to turn around right now because he's going to go in the diamond mold. And that is way more interesting. So I'll show you the two colors here in a moment. Okay, so into the mold with a pipe capped, he blows hard, he sucks in, he twists, and he's out. And there are your diamonds. Now it's a little hard to see any color coming through right there, but we're going to see that in just a few moments as it expands. And I'm going to show you the ornament we had just a moment ago. Well, I think I'm going to have to walk around here for it. Okay. So this is how the colors come through. Okay? That's what you're going to be seeing as a result. Not those same two colors, but something very similar. So that's how he gets that two-color pattern. Now what he's doing is letting this cool off a good bit. He's even using the Sofietta to chill the end just a little bit. Yeah, if the wow so fast comment is about the blowing in the mold, yes it is. You need the glass super, super hot. You want to get it as hot as you can control, get in, blow hard, and get out. And then that's what sets these beautiful points. So there you can see all those little diamond shapes in it. And each of those indentations are what will trap air. The next gather of glass will not sink in and fill them. Again, into the glass, turning, pivoting to level, to finish the gather, and then stripping it off by pointing the glass downward. And if he's got exactly what he wants, he'll go with that, and it appears he does, unless he peels some off with his shears. He's right where he wants to be. And in just a moment here, we'll start seeing all these bubbles appearing. So use the cherry wood block, keeping everything nicely under control. Yeah.
With you.
I wouldn't lie.
No.
Well, not about this. a lot of other things, but maybe not this.
Wouldn't lie, just twist the truth.
I'd hate to say to our viewers that I've been lying about this glass knowledge all these months. Now you can see the bubbles starting to appear and a little bit of the color separation. So Todd will begin working this out. And again, it'll be a sphere with a jack line in it, and then the shape will be changed to that of his stein. So he'll actually wind up inflating a little bit more than the final diameter of the vessel, and away we go. So he waited a little while before gathering between those two layers. He's equalizing the heat, so he's got a little bit of work to do here. Notice when he inclines the iron downward, he cools that tip of the glass. That will not blow out, or not too much, and he traps the air bubble in there, and you see the expansion right up at the top, and you can see the bubbles appearing where the diamonds were. I was joking around, Joanna, if you're in reference to lying. I really have not made up the explanations of what we do. It's really for real. I know what's going on. All right, so a jack line close to the pipe, because again, who wants a 4.5 foot piece of steel on their stein? Oh, we could have a steel stein. Wow. Let's say that 6 times real fast. Anyway, here we are coming back to the sphere with the jack line and a little more inflation. See those beautiful bubbles in there. The cutting of the jack line is really important. If it's not a large enough diameter, it impacts the transfer, the break off, if you will. Because when we actually do that transfer and break the piece away from the blowing iron, there's a little bit of shock, transmission of energy, and the glass actually springs apart a little bit. And if that diameter is too large, you have a very much larger surface of the glass in motion, and it can crack and run down the side of the piece. So by constricting the neckline like that, you restrict the available space to move, and the glass doesn't spring apart. It's not much, but it's enough that if you don't have a good jack line cut, you're going to be in trouble. Another thing that we notice about the jack line is not only is it constricted, it needs to be sloped. And you'll notice how it slopes away toward the shoulder of the piece. That again, that little concave shape helps relieve the stress. And now we're getting the shape of the body for his spine. And we can use the newspaper to straighten it out. Again, he's got numerous tools he can use. Most of us prefer to use the paper or the jacks to straighten the body. Every once in a while we'll use the marver, but the marver is quite often a little bit more tricky to maintain subtle control. It's a large surface that you're rolling across. With newspaper or the jacks, you can use really subtle movements. And you'll notice that Todd is one of the most subtle people in here, and that's the reason. Not only subtle, incredibly mature. There you go.
Now my hands.
Hey, if you keep, now his hand's wet, yeah. Would you like some tissues? I think we better stop. Now he is using a marver, but look, he's capping the end of the pipe, and that keeps the air from blowing back out. All right, so he's asking Foster to grab the paddle, and Todd will probably use either the newspaper or the jacks to kind of hold the body in place. When he comes out, take a look at how much of this is orange. About the lower 3 inches are orange there. So by using the newspaper to hold it in place and having Foster press, we get a nice crisp bottom on that. Todd will straighten that up a little bit, make sure it's perfectly flat. So when the two glass workers team up like that, it's much easier to get a nice crisp edge on the bottom. You've got force being applied to the side of the vessel, which is what Todd was doing, and you've got force applied to the bottom of the vessel. No, we're not selling the version of the shirts that Todd has on right now. We found that the paper clips were too expensive. In fact, I'm afraid a staple gun would be next. Okay, now with placement of the punty, we go for the center of the bottom. Now watch the iron that the punty's on. You see, it's moving nice and smooth. If it were off center, it'd be moving up and down like this. So he's got it nicely centered. He chills the neck, and then a little vibration breaks it free. Centering is probably one of the toughest skills to teach glass blowers. And because the glass is constantly moving and it's hot, it takes a lot of concentration, but the centering is still just an even distribution of the glass around the central axis, or if you could think of the blowpipe extended. If the punny iron that he has right now were a telescoping umbrella handle, say, and he punched the button on it, we would want the pipe to extend straight out through the opening, and that would indicate that it was on center. Yeah, spit that out fast. I've obviously had a lot of experience teaching people with that one, but now let's look at the end of the piece as he turns. Look at the opening there. It's right in line with the rest of the pipe. Right now, he's pulling the glass with his tweezers a little bit. He's going to thin it out, okay? So a lot of times, if we've got a thick lip on a piece, it might not be as nice to drink from. It'll feel thick at the lip. So what we can do is we can use tweezers like that to pull it out and then remove it either with the shears or by tapping it off. Or, as you've watched Foster do with his goblets before and flutes, you can just shear it when you first bring it back to the bench. So Todd used the tweezers or pincers, and he's using them again. This is also going to elongate the neck a little bit. Small, gentle motions. Now he's going to cut a bit of a jack line here, and he'll incline the jacks just a little bit and create a space. And then what he'll do is a drip of water onto that joint, and then he'll probably either lay it against the bench rail or he'll use another tool. There's the bench rail. By tapping that, it comes right off at that line he cut, and now we've got a much thinner lip on the piece. So that's one method of doing that. So it's the thinness that he wants now, and now he's going to have Foster use the paddle to flatten it, and that will thicken it marginally. But that's why he didn't want Foster to paddle the lip before he tweezed, because if he'd have paddled the lip then, it would have gotten even thicker. So now what we'll see in a moment is the two of them teaming up again so that they can press the glass from two different directions. Foster's going to have the paddle. That's going to press right on the end. Todd's going to put the jacks onto the piece in it, okay? Foster will come up below his blades, and now Todd's making it round and straight, and Foster's making the lip flat. Todd's straightening the line on the cup right now, and the inside like that rounds it out again. Here we go with a beautiful cylindrical shape. It's going to be a really nice blue beer stein.
See the gold inside that blue
gold
circle?
Inside, yeah. And you'll see that even more after we take this out of the annealer and get some pictures. So Todd's going to get set up for the, yeah, that rail's hot. Who knew?
22 years I've never known.
Yeah. You know, people ask us, you know, if we've been burned or cut, and typically the burns are from touching a piece of hot metal that's not hot enough to glow yet. And you saw Todd just accidentally brushed against that hot rail. He's been rolling 2,000 degree glass back and forth on that metal rail. There's been a lot of heat transfer to it. Now he's got his glass for the handle. He'll come to the marver and start to shape that. Notice how he wiggled it around in the air first. The marver is death to the glass. It sucks the life force, young Skywalker. Okay, so now he'll bring the glass over. He'll attach it to the body and then gently draw up on it. Once he snips it, Foster will flip the iron 180 degrees so the handle hangs straight down. Todd will clip it just to get some fresh glass exposed and set to length, and then he'll draw up with the tweezers and attach the piece of glass. Now he'll use a carbon bar and he'll stretch it upward for the attachment to the body. And then as he goes outward, he gives the handle a little more opening for your fingers to fit in. And that's how we shape up the handle with the carbon bar. Now he can take another reheat or two and get that shape. Temperatures are really critical on this type of, in this stage of the game, because if we get the cup too hot, it will distort and no longer be round. So that's why we usually take only a time or two as far as reheats go to shape the handle. It's got the handle shaped beautifully. There we go with all our bubbles. You can begin to see the colors in there. Tomorrow they'll be much more apparent. So it'll be another flash now, then a chilling of the putty sight, and then he'll tap it off and Foster goes into the annealer with it. A little bit of water right into the joint, and then the vibration is what breaks it free, and off to the annealer we go. So there we go. Thank you, Todd. That's beautiful.
Hey.
Really looking forward to seeing it. And Foster too. Let's hear it for Todd and Foster. Wonderful work, guys. Okay. And I see some conversations going on. Maybe somebody inquired about the mug or whether it was for sale or they could get one. You can get whatever color you want that we have. So just ask away and we'll arrange that. So that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all, folks.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Join us again next Tuesday, if you would, please. And we'll get our Father's Day gifts in line for you, and we'll show you some interesting stuff with that. So from the art